Okay, in question number 3, we are given the closed formula for the nth term of a sequence. So that formula is n times n plus 1. And in part A, we're asked to find the first 10 terms of that sequence. So the way that we will do that is using substitution. So for each term, we will substitute the position for n. So for the first term, where n equals 1, we will say 1 times, in brackets, 1 plus 1, which is equal to 1 times 2, which is equal to 2. So we know that that is the first term in our sequence. That is the term for position number 1. And using that same method, we will figure out the first 10 terms, which we see here. So we have 2, 6, 12, 20, 30, 42, 56, 72, 90, and 110. So part B asks us to do a number of things. The first thing it says is add the first and second terms. So the first and second terms are 2 and 6, as you can see here. So 2 plus 6 is equal to 8. Then it says add the second and third terms. The second and third terms are 6 and 12. 6 plus 12 is equal to 18. And it also wants us to add the third and fourth terms. 12 plus 20 is 32. So they want to know if we notice any patterns. And I think there's a number of patterns that we could notice here, but the one that jumps out at me is that 8 is equal to 2 times 4. 18 is equal to 2 times 9. And 32 is equal to 2 times 16. What's significant about 4, 9, and 16? Well, we know that they're all perfect squares. So we know that 4 is equal to 2 squared. 9 is equal to 3 squared. And 16 is equal to 4 squared. So it's all about recognizing patterns. Perhaps you found a different pattern as well. Now, let's see here. Part B, I, wants us to look at triangular figures. So what are these triangular figures that they're referring to? They're talking about the fourth triangular figure here. Let's just work off to the side here. So as far as the triangular figures go, this is what they're talking about. The first triangular figure ends up just being a dot, so it's a 1 by 1 triangle. The second one is a 2 dot by 2 dot triangle. So there's a little triangle right there. You can kind of see it in there. The third one is 3 dots on each side, like that. And then the one that they're talking about, that they want us to consider, is made up of 4 by 4 dots. Just like that. That's pretty good. Okay. So first thing I want you guys to notice is how many dots are in this triangular figure. Well, in the first row, we have 1 dot. I hope this isn't too small. You have 1 dot, and then in the second row, we have 2. In the third row, we have 3, and in the fourth row, we have 4. So what does that add up to? 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is equal to 10. So notice that any of these triangular patterns really just represents a pattern of adding consecutive numbers. For the fourth triangular figure, it basically means 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, which we know is 10. When we look back at the third triangular figure here, what does that represent? We have 1 dot, whoops, let's try that again. 1 dot plus 2 dots plus 3 dots, and that's equal to 6. Now, what does the question want us to look at? So, it says, take one of these triangular figures, the fourth triangular figure, so 4 dots by 4 dots. Maybe we can make that a bit better. There we go. Oops. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to make another copy of this fourth triangular figure, and we're going to turn it upside down. So we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. We're going to turn it upside down, and then they want us to attach it to the original triangular figure that we had. So sorry, my drawing is not 100% beautiful, but I hope you can get the idea. So we have this white triangle and this pink triangle made up of dots. So now, what do they want us to pay attention to? Take a look and realize that this is now a rectangle that is made up of 4 dots on one side and 5 dots on the other side. So how come we have 5 dots on the other side? Where did that 5th dot come from? So if you take a look, if you imagine that these are actual triangles like that, you'll see that the one point of the second triangle added a dot to the length of our rectangle. So originally we had a 4 by 4 triangle, but now this point is adding a dot. So we have 4 dots on one side and we have 5 on the other. So we have a 4 by 5 triangle. So how many dots is that? Well, we can just find the number of dots by multiplying the sides together. That's 20. And notice that 20 is equal to 10 times 2. And how is 10 meaningful? Well, earlier we found out that the fourth triangle contained 10 dots. So what does that mean? It basically means that when we put 2 of these triangles together into a rectangle and we multiply one side by the other to find out how many dots there are, half of that is equal to how many dots we have in one of the triangles. So basically, it's a way for us to figure out how many dots are in a triangle without counting. So basically, if we didn't have the option to count the dots in this fourth triangle, and we just knew that it was made up of 4 dots on one side and 4 dots on the other, we could just think of it in terms of a rectangle. Imagining the rectangle that these 2 triangles would make, the amount of dots that we would have is 4 times 4 plus 1, because remember that extra dot on one side from the other triangle, which is equal to 4 times 5, and that's 20. So we have to divide that number by 2 in order to find out how many dots are in one triangle. Let's try another example to get this thing to really make sense. Let's talk about a triangle that has 5 dots on each side. Let's make that triangle as nice as we can. There, that's pretty good. Okay, so this time we're not going to count the dots in the triangle. We're just going to use the method of turning it into a rectangle to see if we can figure out how many dots there are. So we're going to duplicate that triangle we're going to turn it upside down and add it to the first triangle. And then we're going to count the sides. Well, we know that the triangle has 5 dots on one side, and we know that on the other side we have 6 because we added that other triangle. And 5 times 6 is equal to 30. And we know that we only need half of that amount of dots to find out how many dots one triangle has. So 30 divided by 2 is equal to 15. And maybe we can write that a little bit nicer even. Maybe we can do it all in one step. We could just say, to find out the number of dots in one triangle is equal to half of that triangle's term in the sequence, so 5 because it was the 5th triangle, times 5 plus 1, which is equal to, once again, 5 times 6, which is equal to half of 30, and we know that that is 15. So that's how many dots are in that one triangle. Okay, so let's look at the next part of the question. I'm just going to copy it over here so that we can see it better. Okay, so similarly, 2 copies of the 100th triangle figure with 1 copy upside down fit together to make a what by what rectangle of dots? Okay, well, let's think about it. We're obviously not going to count all the dots in a 100th triangle because that's a lot. But what we do know, let's kind of just draw them vaguely. How many dots do we know are in each side of this triangle? Well, it's the 100th one, so we know that there are 100 on this side and 100 on this side. And now we're going to add another triangle that's identical upside down to make a rectangle. And we know that this triangle also has 100 here and 100 here. Okay, so how many dots are there all together in this triangle? Well, we know that on this side here, there are 100 dots. And on this side here, well, we have 100 dots, plus we have this 1 dot from the other triangle, so plus 1. So on that side we have 101. Now, so we can fill out this part of the question. Here we can write, it's kind of small, but I'm going to write 100 by 101. And now moving on, we're going to calculate how many dots that makes in one of the triangles. So once again, we're going to consider the rectangle. Let's write out what they have here. So 2 times the 100th term, which is our triangle, is equal to a rectangle made up of 100 by 101, that's a 0, dots. So that means that to find the 100th term, we will have to divide both sides by 2. So let's get rid of this 2. We divided this side by 2, so that means we also have to divide this side by 2. So now we know that the 100th term will contain half of 100 by 101 dots. So that's half of 10,100 dots, which comes to 5 1,050 dots.